Hey guys, Ashok here. So in today's tutorial we will learn in depth about the Adobe Camera Raw. So Adobe Camera Raw is a very powerful plugin of Adobe Photoshop. Yes, it is a plugin, and it is released as a raw image processor, but from I think version 4 it is now possible to convert single layer of JPEG and TIFF file. The good part with Adobe Camera Raw is a non-destructive way of doing post-processing of your images, and it enables to bring changes without overwriting the original file. So whenever you do processing in Adobe Camera Raw, it saves all the instructions and the settings in an extension or small file which is called XMP file. And so your raw image remains the same, and you cannot change your raw file, but all the settings and the instructions which we do in Adobe Camera Raw, it saves in a particular file or extension that is called XMP file. Okay, so let's start our processing of images through Adobe Camera Raw. So before that, let's see the work layout of the Adobe Camera Raw. So the layout which you are seeing is a layout of Adobe Camera Raw. So the left hand side there is a tool, and then there is a preference. We will learn each of the tool in depth. This is a full screen view, and then there is a histogram, and then you can see the EXIF or metadata of your file. This is a panel or tab for the processing, and setting tab is here, and then there we can save or close. You can open your image or open as an object in Photoshop. Here there is a workflow options. We will change this workflow options because by default the setting would be different. And there is a save file. You can directly save your the processed images from Adobe Camera Raw directly to JPEG or any other extensions. So in this tutorial I'll work through this workflow. So one disclaimer is my workflow would different from any other or your workflow. So, and every image will not go through this like 1 to 16 kind of workflow. So every image has a can have a different workflow, depends on the type of image, depend on the lighting condition, and what would be their output requirement. So the first thing obvious is a lens correction or distortion, or remove the chromatic aberration, and then we will set our white balance. We can straighten or crop our images before starting the workflow, and or we can do this step at the last of the processing. Then we can remove the dust from the sensor if it's there. Obviously you should clip the highlights and shadows, and then we will do our highlights and then shadows and other adjustment, or you can say the basic adjustment corrections. Then we'll also play with some clarity slider, and then we'll do processing with curve, particularly for the midtones, and then we can play with the particular color channel with HSL tool. Retouch adjustment is basically a local adjustment correction where we can use the brush, radiate filter, and the graduated filter. And after that you can sharpen the image here in Adobe Camera Raw. It gives option to sharpen your image, but I'll recommend to sharpen your image in Photoshop. As I said earlier, you can crop the image at last, and then open your image in Photoshop as a smart object or simply as an image. These are the basic keyboard shortcuts which you can obviously use to do the processing. So let's start processing our image through Adobe Camera Raw. Okay, now we are here in Adobe Camera Raw. So whenever you open any raw file, it will first cycle through the Adobe Camera Raw, and then you can either directly save it from here or take it to Photoshop for the further processing or editing. So this is the basic panel. As we said earlier, the left hand side you can see the film strip of the, because I have opened number of images here, so you can see the images here. You can select any of the images and work on any of the images. Okay, so let us work on this image. Before starting the processing, 2-3 things which I wanted to highlight here. Go to the bottom of the panel which shows like Adobe RGB or something would be written. So double click this. This is basically a preference tool. So double click this, and the space here you can either make it like Pro Photo RGB if it is there, or Adobe RGB, and depth should be 16-bit per channel, because your raw file has much information either of 12 bits or the 14-bit, but the default here in Adobe Camera Raw, I think it's 8 bits. So change it the bit depth to 16 bits. Okay, the remaining things you can keep it as by default. In the histogram, you should clip the highlights warning and the shadows warning. Okay, so it will show the where your shadows are too much or where your highlights are too much. Okay, so let us work on this image. I have already made some corrections in this file, so let me make it as a default. Okay, so the first thing, when you open your images, you can enhance the detail of the raw file. So this kind of settings is updated in Adobe Camera Raw 11.2 few months back only. So it is actually powered by Adobe Sensei, and basically what it does, it enhances the detail and produce crisp and it improves the color rendering, and it gives the more accurate rendition of your edges with fewer artifacts, and it enhances the especially useful for whenever we make a larger print or big prints, and where the fine details are very much visible. So in that case you can enhance your raw file first. So I click on enhance, and now it is more enhanced and more details are here. So the first tool is a zoom tool. The shortcut key is Z. So when you click this, you can zoom it, right click, and then you can directly go to fit in view. Okay, this is the first tool. Second is a hand tool. The shortcut key is H. So when it is important, when you zoom it like 100%, and then if you wanted to drag it from top, bottom, or here and there, you can use this tool. So I'll right click and fit in view. Okay, the third tab is a white balance tool, or the shortcut key is I. So in order to correct the white balance, you can use this. We will learn how to correct the white balance later on. After that, there is a color sampler tool. So in order to do white balance correction, or if you wanted to select the color of the particular pixels, you can do it. So maximum 9 samples you can take. Like I'll click here and then I'll take samples. So you can see the various RGB values here for the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pixels. Okay, so you can click on clear sample. We will learn how to do that. Then there is a targeted adjustment tool where you can place your the cursor here, and you can do the targeted like huge saturation and the brightness. Then definitely a crop tool where you can crop your image based on the best composition. Then there is a straightening tool. After that there is a transform tool where you can do a perspective correction of your image, particularly for the architectural shots. Then there is a spot removal tool or dust removal. After that there is a red eye removal tool. When you use flash, you can remove the red if it is there. Then there are three tools, which is adjustment brush, radial filter, and there is a graduated filter. So these three works almost similar way. After that you can open the preference dialog box. Here we have already done corrections in our preferences. Then there is a rotate image to 90° left or right, and then there is a recycle. Okay, so the first thing when you start your processing, go to the panel here, which is adjustment panel. So the first thing is 6th number tab, which is a lens correction. What you can do, you should remove the chromatic aberration and enable the profile correction. So what it does, it actually removes the chromatic aberration, the purple and green fringes of your coming from because of the lens. It removes those chromatic aberration. You can definitely go to manual and check it by dragging the slider towards the right. So you should always zoom image and then go to 200 or 400% and check if there is a chromatic aberration, particularly in edges or not. So as I see, yes, you can see the difference. Just see on these area. Okay, I have not corrected the chromatic aberration. Once I correct the chromatic aberration, you can see the purple has gone. So this way you can correct the chromatic aberration. In lens profile correction, I'll just zoom it to fit view. So in enable profile correction, what it does, it actually correct the distortion of your image. Since I have used my Tokina 1116 lens, which is a wide angle lens, that is the reason I see some distortion. So it corrects the distortion by clicking on this. This is the first thing you should do when you start your processing. The second step in the processing is correction of the white balance. So here the third the tool, which is a white balance tool, or press I, which is a shortcut key for the white balance. Just click on this and hover over the image where you can see this the RGB value near to 128, or if I mean to say when the value of RGB are similar to each other, like 128, 128, 128, or nearby plus minus 10 would be okay. Then I'll hover over the image and I'll see if I'll get any pixels which is having similar RGB value. Because it is sky, so you can see the B value is more than that of the R and G. So I'll just press somewhere here and I'll check if I'll get the value to near to 128. So it has corrected my white balance little bit, but since the blue is more here, that is the reason it has enhances the yellow. So I'll make some manual correction here. So this temperature and tint, these are the two sliders for the white balance correction. So you can do it manually also. Okay. The third step is your the global corrections or global adjustment tool. So global adjustment tool, the first slider you will see is a exposure slider. So what it does, exposure allows you to regulate the luminosity of your image. Shifting towards the right hand side gives you lighten the image. Shifting towards the left hand sides, it's the darken the image. So basically it works like your exposure of your camera body. So you can change the exposure to dragging towards left hand side or right hand sides. Okay, so you can press Option or Alt key and check, and basically it works like a threshold mode, and it allows you to potential highlight clipping here. Okay, so if I'll drag towards the right hand side, I can see after this exposure, my highlights are blown. You can see the histogram is touching the right hand side boundary. Okay, so you can definitely press the Alt or Option key and check if there is a highlights there or not. Okay, so I'll do it here. I think this is right exposure. After that, there is a contrast, which is a global contrast here. So you can little bit play here and there, but I'll recommend to work on contrast in Photoshop. So I'll keep it to 0. Highlights, so these are the highlights. Earlier it is called recovery, so you can recover your highlights here. So can you see my clouds are now recovers, the details of the clouds are now recover. Shadows, yes, this is the slider, we can recover your shadows. So I'll increase little bit. Okay, after that white comes, and then there is a black. Okay, so I should not touch the white here. And so based on image, you can definitely change the value of these sliders. Black, so basically usually it is used as in the threshold mode. So you can press Alt or Option key and see if there is a yellow highlights there or not. So you can see below here, I can see the yellow highlights. Okay, so I'll do it little bit here. So at this point I do not see any blacks in my image. I'll increase the contrast little bit, increase exposure somewhat little bit here. Okay, after that you can see those 3 sliders: texture, clarity and dehaze. So this texture slider has just added in this version of the CC this year, where you can enhance the details of the image. You can see what difference it is. For the landscape, you should not do it more. Clarity is the it is a mid-tone contrast, where you can play and increase the clarity of your or you can see the mid-tone contrast here. Dehaze is now added here, where you can dehaze the atmospheric fog or kind of haze here. Then vibrance and saturations comes here, which is a global you can say color contrast here, where the vibrance is increasing the dull colors in your image. So muted colors or dull colors you can enhance in the vibrance, and saturation, it enhances the colors of all the the color channel in the image. So these are basic adjustment tool in the global adjustment tool. The second tab, if you come, it is a tonal or tone curve panel. It works similar to the curve which but not that significant way which we do on Photoshop. The tone curve panel, actually it permits to increase or decrease the contrast in the image and more precisely. And after adjusting the tonal and basic adjustment here, you can go here and adjust the contrast here in more precise way. So ideally the typical S curve is required if you increase the contrast here. And so there are two things, one is parametric and other is point. So parametric curve editor mode, where you find highlights, shadows, lights and darks. Okay, and it is another method of changing the values in parametric editor mode, where you can use this adjustment slider towards the left hand side and right hand side to change. So as per the definition for the contrast, I should increase the highlights and decrease the dark or the shadows. So can you see, I have been increasing my contrast in more precise way. And then there is a point slider, where you can point your slider on the curve and increase or decrease the highlights. So by this way I can increase or decrease the contrast. After that you will see a detail slider here. So detail slider works or you can call it like sharpening of the image, where you can definitely increase the details of the image. So you can go to mask, press Alt or Option and drag towards the right hand side. So basically it is a masking, and where you see the white area, the sharpness would affect on those areas only. Listen this carefully. When I press Alt or Option and drag the slider of the masking, it represents my image with a white mask. So white are the area where the details would be visible, and you can now increase the sharpness here. Okay, so the luminance slider here allows you to remove the monochromatic grainness of your noise. So if you overdo it, details on the image will be softened. So do it precisely. So let me just quickly show you what it does actually. So it basically soften your image. So ideally you should not do it more. Okay, then there is another tool of like enhanced detail, luminance, contrast and the color. Basically the color noise reduces remove the completely or effectively the chrominance color. They work independently from the luminance from the value, and mostly you can set the color side to the maximum value. After that there is a tool which is called HSL or hue, saturation and the luminance. Ideally you should not touch the hue required. If you emphasize on particular mood of your image, then only you should touch the hue. Otherwise you should not touch the hue. You can definitely work on the saturation and luminance. So what it does actually, it work on the individual color channel. Suppose if I wanted to increase the highlights or increase the color of the sky, definitely I'll increase the blue here. So can you see, while increasing the blue here, I can enhance the color of my sky. Likewise, I can increase the yellow or the green to give more punch in this image. This is the saturation, and under the HSO tool there is a luminance, where you can increase the luminance or brightness of a particular color channel. Suppose I want to decrease the color brightness of the sky, I'll go here and decrease the blue. So can you see? So this is the basic adjustment you can do it in Adobe Camera Raw. After that you will see there is a split toning. So split toning works when you wanted to emphasize your highlights and the shadows for a particular color. So just take an example of this image. So if I wanted to increase or if I want to show the mood of this image, if it is morning mood, I'll go here to this color up to like yellow and orange and increase the saturation. So can you see, all my highlights are now converted to this particular color. Also for the shadows, I'll go here and increase the saturation. So it gives a kind of a morning mood to this image. You can also work on your portraits here with this split toning. We have also already done our lens correction. Okay, then there are some other tools which is like effects, which is two things are there, like grains and the post-processing vignetting, where you can increase or decrease the amount of noise, or if you wanted to put more grains in the image, you can do it here. After that there is a calibration. Earlier it was camera calibration, where you can set your red primary, green primary and blue primary. When you shoot particularly for the fashion photography, indoor lighting, you can set your red, green and blue here. So for normal operation or normal processing, you need not to do with these slider. And after that, there is a various presets are there where you can work on the different presets, and you can check. It's like your mobile has given option of the different presets of the processing, and after that you can snapshot of your settings here. Okay, so we have already done our understanding of the global correction here. After that, if you see on the top menu, I'll go to that image again. So the fifth tab is a targeted adjustment tool. So what it does actually, when you press here, long press would give option of hue, saturation and luminance. Suppose I wanted to work on the luminance of a particular pixel, I go here. Like suppose I wanted to increase the luminance of the particular this color, I'll press here, drag it to right to increase the luminance of this. So you can see it opens my HSL tool. Okay, so it works with HSL tool only. And suppose I wanted to increase the color of saturation of or color of the particular pixel, I'll press like green and increase my saturation. So can you see it has now activate my saturation. So it is increasing my yellow and green, because this grass green is also contains some of the yellows. After that, there is a crop tool where you can crop your image with different aspects ratio, and then based on the composition you can crop your image. Okay, and after that there is a straightening tool. So can you see this image is not horizontal? So ideally you in the field only you should correct your horizon, so that in post processing you should not do it too much, otherwise you will see some loss of some of the pixels at the edges. So I'll do correction here and press enter. Okay, after that you will see some kind of transform tool. So I'll open other images, like I'll open this image. Okay, and I'll do the correction. So particularly this is very useful when you shoot the architectural photography. So you can correct the horizontal perspective, vertical perspective, or you can simply press auto, it will correct your perspective. So can you see it has corrected my perspective. After that there is a dust removal tool. So I'll open again this image. So click on, so you can visualize the spots if there is a kind of sensor dust is there. So you can see some of the spots with a round shape. You just click on that particular spot, it will correct automatically. Basically what it does, it takes some of the pixels from the other area or content aware area, and then it recover your the spots. Then there is a radar removal, we have already done that. Then the important sliders here. One is your adjustment brush. So if you wanted to increase or decrease or process the particular area of your image, you can drag the use the brush tool. To increase or decrease the size, the shortcut key is a bracket, and to increase or decrease the feather is basically a smoothing of the edges. So I press shift and then press the bracket key. Okay, so suppose if I wanted to highlight or decrease the highlights of the sky, so I use this brush and I'll decrease the highlights of the. So as I click on this brush, my global adjustment tool has converted to this panel. So whatever the changes I'll do here, it will apply on the area where I'm going to paint it. So suppose I wanted to increase or decrease the highlights here, So I have already click on the mask. So what mask does, it actually shows you the painted area. So I'll remove the mask and I'll decrease the highlights or decrease the exposure. So can you see my effect is only applicable to area where I have painted it. If I wanted to increase the brightness of some of the area, I'll take a new brush. That is an important step. Do not overwrite on the same brush, otherwise it will give the similar effect. Go to the new, reset it by clicking left click and then reset local correction setting. So it has drag all the slider towards the 0, and I'll click on mask, and suppose I wanted to highlight this area of my grass and increase the shadows. So can you see it is affecting only on this part of your image. After that, there is a slider which is a graduated filter. So basically it works like similar to your neutral density or graduated neutral density filter. If you drag towards the top and bottom, so effects would be from the top and bottom. Okay, suppose I want to decrease the highlight from this area, I'll reset to 0 and decrease the exposure here. So it will affect only on this area. You can when you drag from top to bottom, left to right, or any direction, press the shift, so it will not pendulum like this. Just press shift, so it will come as a straight line. Okay, you can also press like from the left to right, right to left, or any other direction. So red is the line where your effects end, and from there to red end there is some smoothing. Okay, so I'll just click on the mask. So can you see my effect is only applicable to the red part only. Okay, so I'll remove this by deleting, and then there is a radial filter. So radial filter works like similar to your graduated filter. So I'll make radius on this area only. Okay, so I'll reset it to 0, and then I can definitely decrease the highlights or increase the saturation of this particular area. Okay, so this is the basic the tools and the adjustment panels on which you should work while you're doing the post processing. We have already learned the basics of the Adobe Camera Raw. So let us use it precisely. So I'll open like this image, and let us see how my Adobe Camera Raw works here. Go to the global corrections. Okay, and the first thing is lens correction. Remove chromatic aberration, enable profile correction. It has already done. I'll zoom it to 100% and see if there is a chromatic aberration or not. Okay, so I'll look on the edges. So yes, it has done its job very well. So earlier there is a purple fringe here. Now you can see there is no fringe. Okay, after that, right click, fit and zoom. I'll go to the white balance correction, or you can do white balance later on also. I'll find the area where I'll see the RGB value are almost similar. So I do not know whether I'll be able to find it or not, because the B value is always more, because I'm clicking on the sky. So I'll press it somewhere here and see. Yeah, I think it is correct my white balance. After that, I'll increase, or I'll just press auto and see if the Adobe Camera Raw algorithm, how it works. Yes, it has worked very well. So I'll increase the exposure little bit, decrease my highlights. I'll not touch the contrast. Okay, increase the shadows because I wanted to highlight on the temple part. Decrease my whites, increase little bit and then I'll not touch the texture, clarity and dehaze. I'll increase the vibrance a little bit to enhance the details. Then I'll go to the graduated filter, or before that I can definitely straighten my image with this reference line. I'll press here this. I'll go to the graduated top to bottom, press shift to make it straight, reset to 0 is already reset, and I'll decrease the exposure little bit. Okay, this is fine I think. And with this radial filter I can enhance the lighting on the temple little bit. Okay, so I'll reset to 0 and then increase the shadows of the temple. So can you see this is the before and after? So can you see this is the enhancement we already done with the Adobe Camera Raw. I'll go to the HSL tool here, and I'll increase the saturation of my blue a little bit, then yellow and the orange also. Okay, I think my almost 70-80% work has done here. And then you can open your image by pressing shift key. You can open as an object. Okay, and so this is the then we'll go to my another image and I will do some corrections here. So the first thing first, we'll do the lens correction, remove chromatic aberration, enable profile correction. After that we will go to the white balance, but I do not know whether I could able to find the gray area or not, so let us take a try. Yes, let us see how it works. No, it is not working well, so I'll reset to as short. I'll not do white balance correction here, but definitely I need to work on the exposure here, because I have already done a little bit less exposure here so that I can preserve my details on the sky. I'll go to the exposure tab here, increase exposure little bit. Okay, so can you see my highlights are on now? Yeah, I think this is okay. Decrease highlights, increase shadows, increase black here. Okay, vibrance little bit. Okay, I'll go to the HSL tool. I'll increase little bit orange and yellow saturation. I think this is okay to work here. So in order to do some dodge and burn, I'll use the radial filter here. So this is the different ways of using this filter. So I'll go to radial filter. I'll increase the shadows and I'll do some increment in the lighting here. Okay, so this was the earlier and this left one is before and after. So can you see with the few changes in the slider I can enhance my image in a more precise way. I'll use this image, or let's use any. Yeah, so can you see with a few changes I converted this image to this. Okay, the last image I'll process quickly here is this. This is the S shot image. So the first thing first, lens correction, remove chromatic aberration, enable profile correction, white balance. I'll press somewhat. Oh, okay, it has not done its job, so I'll reset to S shot. Okay, I'll just press auto and see how the algorithm of the Photoshop works. Okay, this is fine. Decrease highlight more, increase the shadows so that the half of the part should be visible, increase black here. I'll go to my HSL and then I increase little bit saturation here and the blue also. Yeah, so this was before, then this is after. So can you see with few sliders my image has changed from the left hand side to right hand side. So I think you have learned the processing of images. If you have any question or any doubt, please personal message me. Thank you very much.